I don't mean to do a hard pivot here, but I guess I'm going to, because you mentioned an irresponsible immigration regime. Is your being here and your family being here part of an irresponsible immigration regime? Was that a mistake of policy?
I think that personalizing these things is always where policy goes wrong. It's not that there is any particular person who should or should not be here. It's that an immigration policy for the United States should reflect the interests of existing American citizens. Now, I believe in a broad restriction of the overall number of legal immigrants admitted to the United States every year. And suppose in 1990, I guess it would have been 6 when my father first came here, if that number had been lowered and he had not made the threshold, is that somehow an indictment against my family or
right now the only way to get into this country from India in particular is like by marrying somebody. The wait is so long. And I don't understand how the commitment to technological primacy in the 21st century, which is one of the goals of your organization, with like closing the door on India, like sorry to stereotype, but like those seem in conflict with each other.
Yeah, I think all of public policy is a balancing act, right? There is no set of public policies that have all good and no bad. There are trade-offs in everything. I mean, we get this criticism when it comes to the question of geostrategic competition with China as well. People say, well, you want to engage in competition with China, why don't you basically create an open immigration regime with Hong Kong? It's like, no, there are balanced goods that have to be measured in public policy. And when it comes to what I think the squeaky wheels are in the American economy, in American society more broadly, immigration to solve a problem of deep technological malaise in the United States is a Band-Aid. It does not solve the root problem, and it carries externalities that are very damaging to our culture, to the ability for more low-wage immigrants and high-wage immigrants alike, or sorry, more low-wage Americans and high-wage Americans alike to actually move up the ladder of opportunity. The real solution to technological advancement would be taking a good hard look at what the institutions that are responsible for crafting and shaping the brightest people in America are actually sending them to do. And as of right now, you get sent to do one of two things. Either make an extra quadrillionth of a cent on a micro stock transaction on Wall Street, or to monetize the attention of 7-year-olds at a tech company in Silicon Valley. That is not the way to be taking the highest IQ Americans and putting their talents to work. I'd much rather have a system that directed them towards the hard sciences, towards engineering, towards biology, towards chemistry, and we don't have that right now.
One of the things that I have never, and I don't like bringing like studies to the table and throwing stats, because everybody has their statistics and everybody has think tanks of which they always go to get counter numbers. My understanding of immigration, and particularly like technology jobs, is like you grow the pie when you bring in people who have specific skills and aptitudes to start businesses. You grow the amount of opportunity. And the way that you look at immigration, I feel like could be read as you cannot have a single immigrant in this country until every person who lives on the streets and in destitution is working and has their needs taken care of. Like, for the good of all Americans. That's very specific, and like, it seems like a great ideal, but like literally if you view it as a zero-sum game between immigrants and every American citizen, I feel like we are limiting the amount of what is possible. Like, you came here, right? And then you started an organization. Jobs. It's a silly example, but you get my point. Like, there's the idea that either the pie grows or the idea that it's static and shrunk by immigrants.
Yeah, I think that there's probably an intersection point at which there's diminishing returns on what you can do for the native population. And so then the question becomes, on net, what does a particular immigrant or a particular immigration program bring to the table in the United States? At which point, there's not only economic concerns, but there's also cultural concerns. There's societal concerns more broadly. The way that we frame immigration at American Moment is that immigration must be restricted in order to promote national solidarity and the economic well-being of all Americans. Former matters as well. What you have happening in border counties and even kind of moving ever more northward in states like Texas, in states like Arizona, it's not good, but there's a specific portion of it that I want to zero in on, which is that the children of immigrants in these communities that have extraordinarily high populations of foreign-born immigrants have an extraordinarily hard time being taught in English language. And if you don't share a language with your fellow citizens, you don't really share a polity. If you can't communicate with them, you don't really have a country. You have sort of different countries within one nation. That's a recipe for social dysfunction. It's a recipe for a very dangerous sort of politics. And a responsible immigration regime recognizes that any complex system can only take so much rapid change at once. And so we have to be measured, we have to be responsible, and we have to be a little bit, I would say, kind of bloodless in thinking about it. Again, emotions run very high on the immigration issue in the United States. You know, Emma Lazarus wrote a poem once, and therefore we must have open borders. When in reality, I mean, extremely technologically advanced countries like South Korea, like Japan, have never had immigration regimes even remotely resembling what we're doing now, and neither does China. We can have technological advancement, we can have social cohesion without a dramatically massive amount of immigration. And also, there's another side to this, which is that our immigration regime has deep consequences for the countries from which immigrants come. My co-founder, Nick Solheim, he was a missionary in Honduras as a kid, and there were entire communities where the entire population was old people, mothers, and children. What's missing there? Fathers, because all the fathers had gone up to the United States in order to take advantage of what they saw as economic opportunity, and there was a serious social dysfunction that was going on in these communities because it's a pretty, normal conservative talking point to say that you need mothers and fathers in a community for it to be healthy.
You leave the families alone with the gangsters. That's
right.
all that's left.
That's right. And so, I think that sometimes people can be a little bit dishonest about how much this actually animates their thinking, but I think a truly humanitarian approach to immigration recognizes that, especially in the haphazard system we have right now, we often tear families apart through the incentives we create with our immigration system, and we remove reformers, builders, and sort of the engines of societal growth from countries that need them most.